The Paralives developer weekly chat has finally dropped for the 14th of February 2025, and the community's choice question is by Calamity, who says, "Whenever I play a game, I always notice that when something is supposed to be alcoholic, it tends to have a different sort of name. For a life sim, this has always felt pretty immersion breaking. Is Paralives plan to have its own drinks someday, or will you allow our paras to indulge in clearly labeled wine?" And Anna's answered, there will not be any straightforward reference to alcohol. For those of you who are wondering why this is the case, it is due to the game ratings authority. If there's any direct reference or straightforward reference to alcohol in video games, that bumps up the rating. So instead of the game being suitable for 12-year-olds, if there's open, straightforward references to alcohol in a game, it will probably bump it up to an 18, which is weird, but there you go. Moving to general questions, Iceman wants to know how Paralives developers do automated tests. Jeremy's answered, while some programmers might code automated tests for very specific features, when they feel like it, we really don't have the manpower to spare in order to do automated tests at scale. If that had been a development philosophy from the start, if we had a dedicated QA programmer, I don't know how things might have turned out. We generally don't do automated tests. It's also true that this could become time-consuming for Charlotte, who's their QA, but we also do not do regression testing at scale either, otherwise she would never have time to do anything else. This might change in the future when we're done adding new features for early access and change our testing focus. While I agree it's not ideal, we're all doing our very best. Indy says, my wife sent me this tweet of someone saying that The Sims 1 originally came with a list of recommended reading, and wants to know if you could put anything as recommended reading for Paralives, what would it be? Two of the developers have answered this question. Chloe says, I read a pattern language towns building construction. It's quite instructive when it comes to creating towns. It's quite a long read before playing The Sims though. And Alex says, I enjoyed the books 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School and 101 Things I Learned in Urban Design School. I think they could help both new and experienced builders design houses and buildings. Gamergirl wants to know if Paralives will work on laptops. Jeremy says, while we don't have specific minimum computer specs to share yet, we will not have features that work or do not work on laptop computers. This will depend mostly on the requirements from the game and not the type of computer. As long as you've got a Windows or Mac machine that meets the requirement, we'll share as soon as we get them. That should be good. Sailor Muffin wants to know how the developers are planning to continue financing the development of the game after the game has been released. Will Patreon stay forever, or will there be cosmetic packs DLC to support the work? Alex has answered this, and we already know part of the answer in that DLC will always be free for Paralives. And the reason for this, Alex says, is because they want everyone to have all the content the game has to offer just from purchasing the base game. He says, we have calculated that the sales from the game will be enough to support us for a long time, ensuring we can add content and features for Paralives for a good while. Regarding the Patreon, we still haven't confirmed our plans for what will happen to the platform after release. Ben Chicken wants to know, while you've done playtesting, have any specific random events really stood out and affected how you might play the game in a different way? They say, I don't mean bugs, I mean actual features. Anna says, every playtest leads to a lot of tweaks and changes in the features, which is expected. I don't remember any specific event that made us see the game completely differently, but the game would be very different without playtests. Definitely not as fun and not as user-friendly. Moving to developer questions. Indy wants to know, aside from bug fixing, what do you think each of your first goals after early access release will be? Quite a few of the developers have answered this question. Chloe says, I'm hoping I'll be able to do a cool pack with more unique furniture items. Leah says that they would love to work on animals. Andre says, add more music. Alejandro says, well, I definitely want to add more things to the build mode and mod tools. Alice says she would love to add more animations. She also says writing code with a smile. Indy asks if you could put a Parley parody translation of any song into Paralives, which song would you pick? Now, for those of you who don't know, Parley is what they call the language in Paralives. It is not an actual language, it's just a senseless noise language, but here are the developers' answers. Chloe says this classic. Gab says Chapel Roan Hot to Go. Leah says Chris Stapleston's Starting Over. Andre's response was the song Lady by Mojo. Alejandro says the Pina Colada song, and Alice probably some song from Dalida. Juice Drop wants to know if Paralives could cross over with anything, such as people, games, movies, books, etc. What would be on the top of everyone's wish list? Chloe says hard to decide, maybe Redacted. Ooh, interesting. Gab says Chapel Roan. Leah says Brooklyn 99 would be really cool. Alejandro says D&D stuff and Lord of the Rings. Alice would love a collab with a famous chef. And Charlotte seconds D&D stuff. Moving to the live mode questions, Calamity asks, will Paris be able to choose between tea or coffee as their drink of choice? Ooh, that's a contentious question, isn't it? Anna says there's a coffee machine and kettle in the game, so they'll probably be able to drink both, but a hot drink preference feature is not planned. Jeremy says this could be modded in though. So not planned, but you could put it in the game if you wanted to. Finally, in build mode, Possible Assassin has a question from Rockfish, who says, something that I felt missing from games like The Sims was being able to have an attic space. There's an option of ladders in The Sims 4, but they're not the same as attic ladders, which fold up into the ceiling. What I'm wondering is if there is a way to incorporate attics into builds, or if there are any plans of that happening for future expansions to the game. Jeremy's answered this and said, because our basic roof system is made up of roof items, there's no default option to make an attic. You could build an attic floor if you want to, but we don't have an attic ladder that folds up into the ceiling item, only a simple ladder. As for plans for the future, everything, asterisk, is possible. And the footnote to that is not exactly everything, haha. We have so much stuff to do in the present, we're not thinking that far ahead. I cannot confirm or deny anything solid, but thank you for the question. So my friends, which one of these questions are you most interested in? And what are you hoping that they put into the game? I have to admit, the attic ladder that goes up into the ceiling would be an awesome thing that we currently don't have in The Sims. Don't think we're going to get it in Inzoi either, so if Paralives does it, that would be a really awesome and unique feature. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next Paralives Developer Weekly Chat.